Today we're going to talk about hydrogen peroxide. I'm going to share with you just how I treat a shrimp tank with it, and I also want to show you guys how I spot treat algae with hydrogen peroxide. Don't go anywhere. Hydrogen peroxide is a really awesome chemical compound. It's H2O2, it's 2 hydrogens and 2 oxygen molecules. It's pretty much just water with 1 more oxygen molecule. So when you add hydrogen peroxide to water, pretty much you just create more H2O. Then you end up with this loose oxygen molecule. It's hyperactive, it's bouncing off of everything, and that's why a lot of people use it to take out stains and to remove things like, blood and rust and a lot of different organic compounds that normally would stain permanently. So basically what is happening is when that hyperactive oxygen molecule is bouncing all over everything, it's actually breaking the cell walls of different organisms and even just different algae. Now please take a little bit of caution when using hydrogen peroxide in your aquarium. It is a corrosive compound. You can definitely hurt yourself with it if you're using some of the stronger forms. Hydrogen peroxide can be found in many different forms. You can find it from a 1%, 3%, 10, 20%, up to 90% hydrogen peroxide. It's actually used as an ingredient in making rocket fuel. Now I usually use the 3% hydrogen peroxide. The food grade hydrogen peroxide is pretty powerful, but it can be dangerous to work with. So I recommend that most people just handle the 3% hydrogen peroxide. Now please do also keep in mind there are some kind of buffering agents in there and some stabilizers to help the hydrogen peroxide last and have some shelf life. So some of those agents that are in there could be harmful to some different species of fish, so just take some caution with that as well. This is the blue bolt Caridina shrimp tank that we are talking about. Let's see if we even see a shrimp. The shrimp pretty much just hide in this subwasser tang over here. And they hide up in this, subwasser tang, and I've got some pearl weed and whatnot. It's just really thick on both of these sides. And so they never come out, and I haven't seen shrimplets in at least 6 months. It could be some kind of a green fungus, something going on in here. So I'm gonna go ahead and take the chance and do a little bit of hydrogen peroxide on this tank. So there's lots of videos out there on using hydrogen peroxide in your aquarium. Everybody's got their different dose. I've seen people use up to 3 milliliters per US gallon. I do not go over 1 milliliter per US gallon. Maybe if I'm doing some crazy, like totally nuking a tank or something, I might do, 1.5 milliliters or something like that. A lot of people out there are using 1.5 milliliters of hydrogen peroxide to 2 milliliters of hydrogen peroxide for shrimp tanks in this situation. I'm going to go ahead and use 1 milliliter just to be super extra cautious. I might in a week or so treat this tank again. I am going to take the sponge filter out so that I don't completely nuke all of the biological and the beneficial bacteria in the sponge. Stick around for after I treat this shrimp tank and treat some algae in this new 29-gallon tank. I'm going to go ahead and show you a couple of other little tips and tricks, things that I use hydrogen peroxide for in my fish room and in the aquarium hobby. Okay, we're going to get back to treating this shrimp tank. Now I'm gonna go ahead and use a syringe. I have a few of these. I recycle them, I keep them around, and I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 milliliters here. Now this is a 10-gallon aquarium. There's some substrate, and the tank is not completely full here, and you got the substrate. So I'm gonna take that into account. So I'm actually just going to go ahead and treat this tank for really just actually 9 gallons. So I'm just going to, like I said before, I only want to do 1 milliliter per gallon just this time around. So I'm going to go ahead and treat this aquarium with 9 milliliters to make that dosage work. I'm just going to go ahead and fill it up. I just go right into the hydrogen peroxide bottle and get this thing all the way filled up. Got 9 milliliters in there. I don't really want to just squirt all of this 3% hydrogen peroxide right into this aquarium. What I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna take a container here, and I'm gonna go ahead and get some water out of the aquarium. Not too much, just a little bit, so that I can dilute this hydrogen peroxide. I'll go ahead and squirt it out there, and we will get it in the aquarium. It is really that easy. So I'm just going to observe this aquarium for a little while. I'm gonna see how these shrimp react to this, if they start to run around and be crazy. The snails do not like hydrogen peroxide very much, so please keep that in mind as well. If you have really, really special snails, you should probably pull them out. I would definitely recommend removing special snails from a tank if you're going to dose it with hydrogen peroxide. And just like worrying about the snails, there's other fish that cannot take a lot of hydrogen peroxide. So with a lot of caution, do I say to use hydrogen peroxide in your aquarium. I very, 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 very rarely use it inside of my aquarium. The other time that I'll use hydrogen peroxide in the aquarium is when I want to spot treat algae that I really want to get rid of without picking at it, so that I don't spread that algae throughout the aquarium. You guys know I just set up this 29-gallon bow face tank, heavily planted. I took plants from multiple tanks, so there's all kinds of stuff that need to be dealt with in here, and I was totally expecting to find a couple of different random algae popping up in the aquarium here, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to get them on camera here. Let me see if I can zoom in here. Okay, so on the end of that Java fern leaf in the center of the screen, you'll see that algae, that string algae, that hair algae that's growing on the tip of that leaf. That's the algae that I don't want in this aquarium at all. Now I want to go ahead and use the same method. I'm going to use this syringe with hydrogen peroxide in that. This is a 29-gallon aquarium. I like to do 1 milliliter per gallon. I'm not going to exceed 29 milliliters while treating or spot treating. I'm probably going to only use about 20 milliliters. So this is the same Java fern leaf that I showed you guys before that has a little bit of this string algae on it, this hair algae. Now I'm going to go ahead and just take 3% hydrogen peroxide. I'm going to slowly squirt it out right in front, right over the top of that hair algae, just to try to get it, as much of it as possible. And you should see it start to bubble. Lots of little bubbles will start to come up off of it. It'll start to turn white as well. There's more than a few spots in this aquarium that I want to treat, so I'm just going to run around here and squirt the hydrogen peroxide wherever I see that string algae that I truly dislike. There's this Physidens here that I really, really like, and it's got this string algae in it, and I'm hoping that I can nuke the string algae, this hair algae, out of here without nuking my Physidens. You can see all of the oxygen bubbles coming off of the Physidens there because I treated it with the hydrogen peroxide. That's going to happen for a little while, and I don't like to do too much treating at once because of this happening. When this gets going after a little while, you definitely do want to do a water change because you are mucking up the water column with organics, things that you are killing and breaking down with the hydrogen peroxide. I actually went ahead and added the full, 28 milliliters of hydrogen peroxide to this aquarium. You can see bubbles everywhere, and all kinds of different organics and debris are going to collect air bubbles, and they're all going to float to the surface. I'm going to go ahead and let this aquarium sit like this for about 3 hours, and then I'm going to do a water change on this aquarium and just clean up the tank a little bit, do some trimming of some of the plants and stuff as well. But more than anything, I just want to do a water change and get some of that hydrogen peroxide out of the water. It takes a while for it to dissipate, and keep in mind, if you overdo the hydrogen peroxide, you can gas your fish and kill them. I have done it before. You can definitely harm them, but I think it's really important to just give the hydrogen peroxide some time to work, and definitely observe your aquarium, watch your aquarium, watch your fish, watch your shrimp, see how they react. It's very important. If something starts to get crazy, if some, fish start floating to the surface, you might want to go ahead and do a water change if you have a chance. Like I cautioned you guys already, I really don't like to use hydrogen peroxide inside of the aquariums unless I really have to. I really only use so much in this tank this time around because there is some string algae in there, and I wanted to use it as an example for you guys. I only have I think 6 wild guppies in there and some Neocaridina shrimp. On top of using hydrogen peroxide inside of my aquarium, there's a lot more ways that I like to use hydrogen peroxide outside of my aquarium in my fish room. First of all, you can use hydrogen peroxide with a paper towel as a glass cleaner, as an alternative to Windex. Like I showed you guys before, I like to use hydrogen peroxide in a spray bottle. You can use this to spray plants that have algae on them and rocks and stuff. I really like to use hydrogen peroxide in the spray bottle when I'm cleaning out aquariums. I'll just spray the inside of the aquarium with the hydrogen peroxide and let it sit for a little while to kind of disinfect and kill everything that it can kill, and then I will go ahead and rinse it out and go forward with setting up a new tank. Another really awesome use for hydrogen peroxide in your fish room is for your hoses, for all your pythons or your gravel vacs, things like that. You can run a little bit of hydrogen peroxide inside of them, let it soak for a little while, and then run a bunch of warm water through that and rinse out most of the stuff and disinfect the hoses that way. One of my favorite things that I like to do with hydrogen peroxide in my fish room is to disinfect my nets. I'll just put the nets that I want to clean in a bucket, and I'll take a little bit of hydrogen peroxide in there, and you can go a little heavy on this because it's just nets, and then you'll add water to get it up as high as you want to. Let them soak for overnight even if you want to, and then I like to sun dry these in the sun to get a little bit of UV light on my nets to help sterilize them the rest of the way. Now, besides messing around with hydrogen peroxide, I want to show you some of the fresh stuff I've got going on in the fish room. Now, this grow out tub, you guys have probably seen it before. Now, I have put water lettuce in here. I have water sprite, there's hornwort, and I'm really in love with this Asian watergrass, but I've noticed that the Asian watergrass is kind of getting pushed out of the way by this other stuff. So I really want to get these other plants out of here and give that Asian watergrass the room that it needs so that it can spread around. I really want to propagate that more than these other plants. The black water tank is doing good. I'm going to add a bunch of botanicals in there and get some botanicals going for some of my other tanks. I got a video coming for you guys on that. Here's the 29 gallon. We're gonna see how this goes with these algae. I gotta keep this stuff back. I'm gonna keep up on the water changes. I'm gonna do a water change in a couple of hours here to get all this funk out that I've kind of got floating to the surface at this point. We have Elliot up here at the top, happy in his new scape. I'm loving the look of that driftwood among the spiralis. And I just really would like to create an awesome little cave system for Elliot. Kind of been holding out until I get to the States, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to hold out. I think I'm going to make it here and just take it with me. He's hanging out there, peeking his head out there at the top. Hi, Elliot. Say hi to everybody on the YouTubes. All right, so everything else is doing good in here except for the bacteria bloom. That is a big thing for me, and that just goes to show you that no matter what, you're gonna have that happen in your fish room. If you have even just one tank, you might even probably could experience a bacteria bloom one time or the other, and sometimes they can last for a long time. These shrimp don't seem to have a problem with it, and the fish that I've had in here before don't seem to have didn't really have a problem with it. It's not pretty to the eye, but it does have to do with a little bit of an imbalance in the substrate and probably too many snails and things like that. But that is a learning lesson, and it is definitely just goes to show you that it can happen, and it does happen, especially if you have lots of aquariums. In the bottom tank here, we're looking at that crypt in the back right is really starting to explode. In the little bit of Ludwigia that I have in the front right is also starting to explode. I've just been taking cuttings off of it and spreading it into other tanks. It's the first time I've actually had a Ludwigia really do well for me, so I'm pretty excited. Everybody in the kitchen is doing good except for these vases. I'm a little bit bummed with the vases right now. I've been doing water changes, and you can see that I could do a water change again, or a little bit of a top off right now. But I'm starting to get a little bit of melt with some of the plants. This hygrophila here started to melt back. It's got new growth, but there's some melting. I've definitely had some mosquito larvae in here. It's just really just, these are experiments. It's interesting to see what happens. This hygrophila back here in the back has had no problem becoming immersed and growing out of the water. Same with the pennywort, or the hygrophila, the hydrocotyle Japanese, pardon me. It's doing well also. And then my favorite plant in here is this one right up here in the front. This is the Hygrophila polysperma species tiger, and I just love this plant, and I've got it around the fish room, and I'm just hoping to get more and more of it growing, and can actually share it with other people as well. Well, I hope this helps some of you with the use of hydrogen peroxide in your aquariums or just in your fish room. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Thank you to all of you that like, comment, and share on all of my content. If you like this content and you're not subscribed, go ahead and click on that subscribe button down below. Don't forget to hit that bell icon for all notifications. And remember guys, keep your tanks clean, your fish fed, and have fun.